If you- Please keep your mics on mute.
C'est bon, vous voyez l'écran? Vous voyez le PowerPoint?
Can you all see the PowerPoint on the screen?
Oui, c'est bon. Ok, donc bonjour à tous et à toutes.
Hello everyone, welcome to this new virtual workshop on agriculture, food and reforestation in Africa.
Je vais tout de suite mentionner qu'il y a interprétation simultanée disponible si vous avez besoin de suivre en anglais ou en français. Vous pouvez juste cliquer sur l'icône du globe en bas de l'écran. So if you need to follow this session in English or in French, please just click on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen and you can switch to English or French or the language you wish to follow in. Donc, je vais juste me présenter très brièvement.
I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Eva Radek. I'm in charge of events and the coalitions at Climate Change. I also want to say that if you have any questions or any comments, any suggestions during this virtual workshop, please do not hesitate to send your messages via the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we will collect the questions and for the Q&A session at the end of this session.
Vous pouvez rester sur mute, s'il vous plaît, ça. Merci. Donc aujourd'hui, on est plus de 300 inscrits.
Today, we have over 300 people who have registered for this workshop, covering a number of challenges and topics, quite diverse, as you can see. We're talking about agriculture, food, and reforestation, which cover a lot of topics. These are very wide topics. We have a lot of challenges that we will be addressing. And we wanted to see what kind of objectives we can work on for 2021, especially in view of the next Climate Change Summit in Dakar next September 2021, and also the COP26 conference in November of 2021. We're not going to present climate change again, so I think you all know who we are. But just the main headlines, this organization was funded in 2015 prior to the COP21, and we had the first summit in Abidjan since the creation of the coalition. We have had an increasing number of members, with a large number of members in this coalition. It is the largest coalition that we have, which is why we have a large variety of projects in this coalition.
Je voulais mentionner aussi le fait que cette coalition regroupe tout un ensemble toute une diversité d'acteurs non étatiques.
We have a whole range also of non-state actors, NGOs, private actors, associations, local governments. That's also part of our challenges. It's important that we find good work, access for actions. Now, today's purposes, our objectives is threefold: to look at the new roadmap and validate the new roadmap together. For 21-22, you had this sent to you prior to this workshop. Thank you for all those who sent their feedback on this. That was really helpful. We have quite a few things that we need to restructure probably after this workshop. We do have many topics to cover in this coalition, therefore we will need probably prioritize our various projects in this roadmap.
Quelque chose qu'on va voir un peu plus tout à l'heure dans l'atelier. Deuxième
Second objectives
aujourd'hui, c'est de
for this workshop is to really have a time of presentation and sharing of good practices, best practices, which we do every time, so that we can be aware of the various projects and what can be replicable in other places in connection with the coalition. We will be looking at the rural and the urban context, and we want to thank our speakers for today. And our third objective, which is more global, is to really have an interactive workshop. Please feel free to send your questions in the chat box. At the end of the session, we will have a time for Q&A. I'm now giving the floor to Tanya. She will be presenting the roadmap.
Merci Eva. Maintenant, je vais passer en anglais, and I will be explaining the three sections of this roadmap, which was sent to the coalition earlier, as Eva mentioned. So if you've been following our coalitions, you are probably already familiar with this structure that we have. The first part is where are we now? And this section sort of details the current situation on the ground with respect to agriculture, alimentation, and reforestation in Africa. And as Eva said, we acknowledge that this is a very, very large domain, and that there are aspects that are related to socio-economic indicators, and as well as land rights, questions of gender, and everything that forms a part of this. And so with respect to where we are now, the roadmap acknowledges that deforestation has been continuing in the forests of Africa, that the objectives of the Great Green Wall project have only partially been attained. And it also acknowledges the importance and the need for nature-based solutions in agriculture and agroecology. The second part of the roadmap deals with where would we like to go, which sets down the objectives for this coalition. And these objectives for the moment include involving the local population in the protection of biodiversity, educating the local population in the fight against deforestation and land degradation, and also involving the private sector in at the local level to share innovations, and also in the preservation of biodiversity, and also to have a diversification of agriculture to find a balance between having enough harvests to ensure food security, but at the same time also having a check against the exploitation of resources to ensure that the systems that we have in place are sustainable in the long run. And finally, to also mobilize the youth, because the youth have the most to contribute, but also probably the most at stake with all these problems and the issues at hand. So the third and the most important part of the roadmap is how do we get there? And this is the part that is open to consultation to all of you. And on these are the aspects on which we would like to hear back from you. And for the moment, we have these two steps that we've listed: the sharing of information via the coalition's mailing lists, which I'm sure a lot of you are already a part of. We're also planning to quite possibly have a monthly newsletter for the coalition where we could share not only news from our side, but everything that's happening with you that you would like to share with your colleagues in the same domain. And also there's the mapping of actors through initiatives and exchange of best practices. You can find all of this on our website through our cartography for climate action, which we will send you the link to in the chat. And this is essentially the roadmap. And like Eva mentioned earlier, I'm sure that you have all received this through the coalition's mailing list, and we've received whatever inputs you have sent, and we're still open to them. And now we will also have some more of your inputs live, if you will, through the next session. So we will now move on to a Mentee questionnaire. So Eva, if you could go on to the next slide. Yeah, so we request all of you to go on to mentee.com on your laptops or your mobile phones and enter the code 62 78 52 86, and you will be able to access two questions. The first one being, which subsectors related to this coalition do you work in? Uh, so this, it would be great because like we mentioned, this coalition covers a very, very large area, and knowing concretely which subsectors you work in would help us increase the synergies between the different projects. And the second question that you will find on Mentee is how to enhance engagement within the coalition. How do you think that you could engage better with other actors on the ground? So this coalition has nearly 1,000 people and various projects and areas of expertise across Africa. And the aim here is to identify areas to work together and to find out which projects are open to collaboration. So it would be great to hear from you and to hear from you live. So if you could, again, head on to mentee.com, use the code 6278, sorry, just a second, 62 78 52 86. Thank you.
Je partage également juste dans le chat pour que tout le monde puisse avoir accès.
You will find again in the chat box the name, the address of the website, as well as a code to access the survey.
Ok, on commence à avoir quelques réponses, mais en fait, je pense que ça va être mieux si on garde.
We will wait till the end of the session to look at the answers to those two questions.
Comme ça, on est sûr d'avoir le temps. Ok. Donc, nous allons maintenant passer au moment de la discussion du panel.
We will now have the presentations of our three panelists, our three speakers. We thank them for being with us today. I will introduce them first of all. We have plantation and sustainable development in Dakar, Dakar municipality, one of the cities involved in this initiative, and she will present the project called micro gardening or micro gardens, which is an important project for developing nature within African cities. This was launched a few years ago, and it keeps on growing. This project is very interesting. Then we will have Mr. John GOEPP, who is a director of Nebeday, which is an NGO in Senegal created in 2011, environment at the heart of development. Ndeye works on governance issues, protections, the promotion of green energy, and carries out a lot of activities to raise awareness with local populations. We're very glad to have him with us today. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And finally, our third speaker will be Emem, who is founder and CEO of WINCO, Women Organization, Conservation Organization, an NGO of women in Nigeria. Thank you all. Thank you, Emem, for accepting our invitation also today. This NGO is working on the issues of sustainable development in some areas in Nigeria, and they have recently shared the project with Climate Change. when we launched our call for proposals. I will now give the floor to Dakar, to Mrs. Mboji, and she will be presenting the micro gardening project, which you will also find on our mapping at Climate Chance. You can start sharing your screen, please, and you have the floor for 8 minutes.
Dites-moi si ça va pour le partage d'écran. Et vous êtes sur mute aussi, je dis tout de suite. Vous avez le micro coupé.
Ok, je vais essayer de partager l'écran.
Parfait.
Vous voyez l'écran?
Pas encore, mais
Pas encore.
ok. Vous pouvez réessayer une fois et après, sinon, on peut le faire. Il n'y a pas de souci.
Vous m'entendez quand même?
Oui, on vous entend parfaitement.
D'accord. Attendez, je vais essayer. Voilà. C'est OK?
On ne le voit pas encore. Vous voulez que je le fasse?
Là, c'est bon ou
Non, non, on ne le voit toujours pas.
toujours pas? Ah, je ne sais plus alors. Partager. Ah oui, attendez, c'est moi.
Voilà.
C'est
Ça
bon?
arrive.
Voilà. OK, d'accord.
Merci, Madame Mboji.
Voilà. Donc, merci, c'est un plaisir d'être là.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. Dakar is used now to working with Zoom. Recently, we had the Climate Change Association with us. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the micro gardening in Dakar. Something we've been doing since 2006, sorry. Just to give you a bit of a context, we have over 1 million people living in Dakar, and we have a growth of population like never before, with some issues related to that. And microgardening is an alternative food system for a population who is facing food insecurity and poverty. What are the micro gardens? These are just some small gardens, which are small production units, which are very simple, not very costly, adapted to urban living. We use waste materials, recycled materials like cultivation trays, bottles, buckets, and we also use shells and straw, etc. Our targets are mainly the women's group, older people, younger people. We also try to work with handicapped centers and prisons and also schools. We consider that we need to start at a very early age to raise awareness among the children, to help them respect nature. In Dakar at the moment, we have 12 centers of training centers. We have trained over 10,000 people, and our cultivation trays are given for free to the population to use, for the population to use. We have 147 centers of productions, community centers, production centers, and we have over 140 of them at the moment. We have 83% of our beneficiaries, which are women. 50% of them are younger ones of under the age of 36. We have about 25 schools, training schools. And during the training sessions, we involved women, teachers, the gatekeeper, the students, etc. Since 2006, a micro garden has become a reality in the city of Dakar, providing food security. The consumption of free vegetables and healthy vegetables has enabled for a better quality food and a more varied food. This micro garden program is part of the development project of Dakar. Now, regarding the sustainability of this activity, the city of Dakar has implemented different devices, the training and the support of the trainers, the support of the stakeholders, the safety of the site, the equipment and the supply in water, which is a real challenge. The teaching and popularization of this kind of gardening, the free access to the training, the impact on populations, on the food aspect and nutrition aspect. We have noticed that the products from the gardens, mainly aiming at the most vulnerable groups like the older people, the women, etc., because they have been able to consume fresh vegetable. This has been of a great help to them. Women who are sick with either diabetes or anemia, they have been able to consume more free vegetable, and that has had a great impact. All the women with no physical activities are now able to have an activity to exercise and keep fit and keep themselves busy during the day to avoid any kind of inactivity. The prisoners also have access to these fresh vegetables. And we have also noticed that, generally speaking, the people have developed a more of a healthy eating mentality mindset instead of using other types of products. And also people are more inclined to use plants and healthy food. Now, on the educational level, the children from the schools, elementary schools, this micro gardening has helped them to be more aware of the environment and to give them a mindset of respecting and protecting the environment. The children are learning to become future eco-citizens. Now, on the ecological aspect, Dakar is made up of a lot of concrete. It's all concrete. So the micro gardens have become a real heart for greenery. And the micro garden has upgraded the spaces that were unused or degraded before. The social impact now, we have noticed that these activities in connection to the micro gardens have increased the cohesions among the people and the populations between different districts. These activities have helped also for social rehabilitation, in particular with women, older people, handicapped. There's a great involvement of the women because that kind of activity requires less efforts than the conventional type of cultivation or agriculture. Now, the economical aspect. We have also noticed that the micro garden project was helping to provide for more employment and provide healthier food. It does not require a lot of investment because it is using recycled materials. Therefore, the productions are greater, are greater and are of a better value and better quality. What is not consumed by the producers is sold on the market. This is quite a well-known label now. So therefore, we realize that the new generation, the people are getting to know this more, and this is a real source of income around this activity of micro gardening. I think I have covered pretty much everything without going over my time. So thank you very much for your attention. You were very up to time. Thank you for keeping the time. Now, again, we invite all of our participants to look at our website where you will find all these projects. And if you have projects you would like to talk about or share with us, please feel free to let us know.
Comme ça, on va pouvoir passer à Jean,
Now we can move on to our next speaker,
directement du terrain.
Jean, straight from the field.
Je peux arrêter le partage d'écran. Une minute. Bon, je laisse Tania gérer ça. Ah, parfait. Et Jean, est-ce que vous voulez vous-même partager
Jean, would you like to share your screen? You have a PowerPoint.
Oui, je préfère que vous le fassiez de votre côté si c'est possible.
If you don't mind doing it yourself, it would be easier.
C'était un PowerPoint hein, que je vous ai envoyé, je ne sais même pas.
Oui, oui. C'était 2 pages de PDF. C'était ça.
Ok, ok.
Attendez,
Et je pense que je vais plus vous parler comme ça, mais c'est bien aussi de partager.
Bah, vous pouvez commencer tout de suite. Hein.
You can start.
D'accord. Donc, bonjour et merci.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me.
Bonjour à tout le monde.
Hello, everyone.
Donc, Nebeday est une petite
Nebeday is a small organization in Senegal,
qui est centrée sur le terrain.
on the field, based on the field. We carry out a variety of actions.
Surtout, en fait, on intervient surtout en zone rurale.
We mainly work in rural areas,
Pour pas mal de zones rurales, ça devient de plus en plus dur de vivre.
and it's getting harder and harder to survive and to live in some of the rural areas because of the lack of natural resources. We lose about 215 hectares of natural forest per day in Senegal, and fish is getting more rare, and that makes life in the rural areas much more difficult. So we were wondering about what we could do practically to help and contribute to this trend, or try to change this trend rather. The first thing was to first identify why this was happening, why these natural resources were disappearing. We have found several reasons. Forests disappear sometimes by lack of choice. When you spend all day and you don't know how you are going to make a living, to get food, to get health, and you have a tree next to you which you can use for coal, for fire. There's a growing demand for coal. Over 80% of the households use coal for cooking. So there's a greater demand. Therefore, people would use and cut a tree. It depends on places. It can be sold between 200 and 300 francs, CFA francs. Sometimes it's by lack of choice that people get to cut the trees. And there is a great demand for wood fire. That's the first issue. So in order to meet that need, we can try to work on substitutes. Fuel, we have developed something that is based with straw. We call it eco coal, to avoid using wood fire or wood coal. The second thing is to say that wherever there are some trees still in protected areas, mainly, we will make sure that the trees remain. So we have worked with several protected areas in the country to try to involve the local populations in these protected areas. These are national protected areas, which are managed either by the Ministry of the Water and Forests, or by the national parks, or by the marine protected areas of the state. So the population needs to be also involved. What we try to do is to encourage the population. Some of these forests were only managed by the state, but now they are co-managed with the populations. So we have been working with the populations in co-management of these protected areas, and it's working well. We are able to better protect the natural resources, the natural reserves, where there are still some trees left. Every year, we launched a new campaigns for reforestation. We planted over 1 million trees last year. You can see on top of the slide, Reforest Senegal, reboisonslesenegal.org. You will find all the reforestation projects. There are over 1 million trees planted, replanted, what kind of species, where, at what time, which date, etc. You find all of these informations. But for me, what matters the most is our future. We are in a country with a high population growth, on average 6 children per woman. These children have to grow with the love of trees, and we try to do this and we work with over 100 schools, working with elementary classes, around 100 children per school, and we try to teach them and to convey the love of the love of trees through educational sessions, videos, films, participatory sessions. We always encourage the children to speak, and in the courtyard, in the school courtyard, they will learn to collect a seed, to plant the seed and to grow the seed. And at the end of the school year, every child will take back home 3 trees. We've been working with over 100 schools, 100 children per school, so many children, and our tree plants are going well. We've been able to plant many trees. Overall, it's working really well. The kids love this, and we have these tree nurseries. They will grow, these children, with the love of growing trees. And they will know how to make compost. They learn how to do this at an early age. And for children to go to school, we need to have parents who are able to send them to school. The best guarantee for sending the children to school is the mother. The mother is the one who manages family income. We support the women. We support a cooperative of 100 women to help them value all the natural resources, the seeds, the tree leaves, the branches, etc. Especially for the moringa and the other species of trees. We have a product which we have invented a product called the fruit bar, made up of fruit, dehydrated fruit. So these women are working in this project with an important turnover every year. We have 8 full-time women employed and other part-time women employed, and they make good benefits. And they make a lot of other things with the moringa tree, fruit, and they produce about 11 tons of products and fruit every year. And that helps to make a living for 26 families or women in the village. We are trying to replicate these business models. We do it with our own resources and so on. That's what we're trying to do. Once a lady makes a living, then she will make sure that a child goes to school, and that's very important for future generations, for children to be able to go to school and at school to learn about the love of nature, the love of trees. We live in the Sahel, the environment is extremely hot. We are subject to all the climate changes. And we are the countries which are at the border of the desert. So if there is not much rain, there might not be any rain in the well at the end of the season. We are subject to all these climate changes globally, but also locally. It's not easy to live in these kind of regions. It's a vicious cycle, if you like. The less trees, the less clouds, the less rain, the less fertility in the soil, etc., etc. So we need to change, turn the trend over. Otherwise, we are heading for disaster, and we will run to the cities. And in the cities, we will realize that the micro garden cannot make a living for all of us. And then we will run outside. We will run away outside if we have no more trees in Senegal. As far as I'm concerned, sustainable economic development and the protection of our environment have to go hand in hand. And we have to do this from the villages, especially with the women. These are our moms, they are mothers, they are courageous, they are good managers, good stewards. I have no idea of the time. I'm not sure if I have more time or not, but that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I try to give you an overview very quickly of what Nebeday does. We also have what we call improved households, 700 of them, to reduce the consumption of energy, wood energy. We do this in rural villages where people cook on wood fires. So we're trying to decrease that consumption of wood fire. Thank you very much. You were perfect on timing. That was good. Thank you for your presentation. You touched on several topics to show again that this coalition is so broad. We've really enjoyed what the connections which you made between education and love of nature in connection to the resilience with the help of the women, which makes a perfect connection with our third speaker, Mrs. Emem Umoh.
Managed to download your PowerPoint presentation. If you want me to share it, please tell me. Oh, hang on, you're just on mute. Yeah, I think you've unmuted. Do you want me to share?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead and share.
Okay, so we'll be delighted to listen to you. You have 8 minutes.
Okay.
I'll share my screen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emem, the CEO, Women in Nature Conservation Organization, WINCO in Nigeria here. I also lead a team of passionate people into conservation activities in Nigeria as well, Georgia Environmental Conservation Services. It's a pleasure being here.
Is everything okay? You're on mute again. Yeah, I think you can speak now.
Okay. Next slide, please. Presented by Chief Executive Officer, located in the city of located in the southeast Niger Delta region of Nigeria, and created on 23rd September 1987 with a private state with a population of over 5 million. A square area of about 2,734 square meters. Currently, it is the highest oil-rich producing region in Nigeria, and has a whole lot of industries, and this makes it vulnerable to climate change impacts. We have been trying on our part to see what we can do to help like have activities that will help reduce the impact of these industries and of course the climate change impact on people, the environment, and biodiversity. Over the years in my area here, it's difficult to really see people get committed and passionate about conservation activities. And for this reason, I had to resign my work as a government official. Then I was limited to what I could do in conservation when I discovered I could do a whole lot to contribute towards a more sustainable planet Earth. So for this reason, we just started our programs. Government has been trying in the management of the state forest reserves, but it yielded little or no impact. I mean, positively, because of the low level of knowledge when it comes to climate sustainability programs and activities in the state. We have 3 gazetted forest reserves in Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. And it will shock you to hear that in the last 14 years, not much has happened in this reserve in terms of sustainable management of the forest reserves. So because of this, in year 2015, I had to initiate first I'll call it a company where we had the community development service aspect and named Georgia Environmental Conservation Services. Sorry, if I have to just run down because of time, so I'm just flowing. You could still keep showing the slide. So we did introduce or establish activities that had to do with sustainable development and management of our forests. Georgia Environmental Conservation Services tried to do a whole lot, and we achieved some laid down goals. We have ongoing activities because when we set out to start conservation work, it was quite difficult. So I had to be strategic. What really do I want to achieve? What's the main goal of what I'm trying to do in a place where you rarely would see people to encourage you? So what we had to do was have a goal, and of course the Boom Greener project being to establish a national park in the States. And we started off with our programs in one of the reserves, apart from other programs we've had within the region. Mentoring program for female undergraduates has been part of our ongoing activities. We've been engaged in aggressive tree planting campaign, conservation education work, and awareness in selected schools, because it's a whole lot of public schools we have here, and trying to cover everywhere was quite difficult. So we first started by selecting some of the schools, selecting the communities, and we engaged them, we created awareness. We had to talk to them, the elementaries, the basics of climate change, of course, and conservation. And we have sustainable project, livelihood project in 2 mangrove communities. These communities initially benefited from a project funded by the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund, and I was privileged to be the project coordinator. It was located in one of the local government areas. So the project closed, but there was a need for sustainability. So we had to, on our own, task ourselves to see what we could do to continue with the livelihood aspect of the project. Next slide, please. Still part of the introduction about the Boom Greener project. One of the main goal of having a Boom Greener project inaugurated was to enhance commencement of sustainable environmental activities in Akwa Ibom State, and of course, this area of Nigeria, I have to say commends, because prior to the time I came back to this area, 2030, there was little or nothing going on in this area. There's been massive and aggressive planting of indigenous and economic species. Have the examples of bush mango, that's Alvinja gabonensis, and some others. We've done conservation education awareness programs in schools, in communities, and other public places. We've had workshops, we've had training of stakeholders. We've done establishment of nurseries at strategic points within the states. And we've commenced the sustainable activities in the three gazetted reserves. And I want to emphasize here again, for over 14 years, no sustainable activities were being carried out in these reserves. So it was just at the mercy of encroachers, loggers, and it led to a whole lot of negative impacts. The main one being loss of biodiversity, increased climate change impacts, and others. Next slide, please. Why Ibom Greener project? Like in the year 2016, there was a summit, and it was at Akwa Ibom State Climate Change Summit and Clean Energy. It was an event that actually gathered so many people from far and near to come brainstorm on the way forward for the issues we are faced with, the peculiar issues we are faced with in the state. And the reports that came out at the end of the summit indicated that there were some climate changes, the risk identified as flooding in so many areas, decrease in agricultural yield, soil and coastal erosion, especially in the mangrove areas where I've been privileged to work, high level of forest degradation and biodiversity loss, and since little or nothing was being done in these areas, the forest and its resources have been so badly degraded before the intervention of this initiative. Then they had some recommendations. So when I sat down and I looked at the report of the climate change impacts, I aligned it with my own goals, my ideas to see what I could do with my team members. I saw that there was need to do data collection and research to have an aggressive, I'll call it, climate change and conservation education and awareness program, training, of course, on adaptive measures for all stakeholders. So based on this and other confirmed reports, like I've been saying, of absence of any sustainable activities in the forest, this initiative, that's the Ibom Greener project, was really necessary.
Sorry, Emem, could you just wrap up in a minute, because we need to have some time as well for the questions and answers.
Okay.
Thank you. If you'd like to continue, you have another minute. Sorry if you didn't understand. You can continue for another minute.
Yeah. Well, let me just continue because I can't really access my slide. What we've done, Women in Nature Conservation Organization was established 2019. So we've done some activities, but the good news is that we've won the approval and collaboration of the state government, heavily led by the Honorable Commissioner of Environment in the state, the Forestry Directorate, and the agency, the Akwa Ibom State Environmental and Waste Management Agency. We have the collaboration from the communities where those reserves are located, and things Ibom greener projects like a wider goal, a wider work or vision, I'll call it. We have to like have sub projects where we now see how we can engage school children, see how we can arrange to train, build the capacity of the staffers and workers in the State Department of Forestry. This has never happened anyway, and we are preparing to have a more safer and well-managed, more managed forest. So we need to do training for this one. So we have also itemized that as part of it. We've had our results, like we've done established nurseries where over 5,000 seedlings have been raised. Tree planting was flagged up to mark this year International Day of Forests, and this was done in collaboration with the rural communities. They are also engaged in planting of trees alongside their crops, and this has helped them over the period, help to improve the yield from their farms. We have also had to do aggressive sensitization. Like I said, it's a routine thing, but most of them still need to know the basics about conservation. So 2,000 materials were printed and distributed. Also, our initiative has attracted some members from other West African countries. We have from Sierra Leone, we have Ghana, from Ghana. They are actively involved in some of the things we're doing, and we're also working to see how we can have an MOU to see how we can get started, collaborate, partner, and get those things extended to other places. School planting program, of course.
We're gonna have to stop here, but thank you so much. And if it's okay with you, we'll share the PowerPoint with all of our participants as well.
Okay, thank you.
Merci
do our
beaucoup.
very best to see what we can do.
Vu qu'on n'a plus beaucoup de temps, on va montrer tout de suite en fait les résultats du.
We don't have too much time left, so we're going to show the results of our survey, which we launched at the beginning of the session.
On a surtout des réponses pour la première.
I think we had many answers for the first question of our survey.
Est-ce que vous pouvez me valider que vous voyez?
Can you all see the screen now? So the question was, which subsectors related to this coalition do you work in?
Sous-secteur, je n'avais pas forcément pensé à environnement, mais à part cela, on a des sujets un peu plus précis comme sécurité alimentaire,
like food safety, organic farming, international cooperation, biodiversity, food packaging. As we look at all these various topics on the screen, it's important that we can all identify these subsectors and know who works in which sector to get a better idea of our project teams. So we can strengthen our synergies within this coalition. I don't know if we have any questions. I think there is a question for Mrs. Mboji.
Tania, tu as la question sous les yeux? Non?
Oui, j'ai la question. C'est question de.
The question was.
Ah oui.
Madame Mboji, aujourd'hui, il est de plus.
Mrs. Mboji, today we see more and more poverty in the rural areas and the scarcity of water. When are we going to see the development of this micro gardening model also in the rural areas? So the question is really, are there any projects for replicating the micro gardening in the rural areas? Yes, there are some projects, but this is run by the state. The city of Dakar is only doing this in the city itself, but the state is working on developing these projects also outside of Dakar. But that's mainly with the ministry.
Ok, super. Merci, Mboji. Est-ce
Thank
qu'on a
you.
d'autres questions
Do we have any other
des
questions?
participants là-dessus?
Spontaneous questions from our participants? We have 2 minutes
Une
left.
question que vous voulez
If someone has a question that you absolutely want to raise or ask, to ask one of our speakers,
pour la poser.
this is the time now to do it.
Là, vous êtes autorisé à activer vos micros.
If that is the case, then you can unmute if you have a question to raise right now.
Peut-être qu'on peut profiter aussi pour...
Bonjour.
Oui, oui, oui. Présentez-vous, s'il vous plaît.
Yes, please introduce yourself.
Je suis Monsieur Malansar.
I'm Mr. Malangsar.
Ah oui, c'est votre question qui vient d'être posée.
Okay.
Je suis Monsieur Malansar. Et
Oui,
donc,
bonjour.
You raised a question that was
département de
answered.
du Sénégal.
I'm from Senegal.
J'ai vu dans la présentation de Emem.
I saw in Emem's presentations,
J'ai un problème de maîtrise de l'anglais, mais quand même.
I cannot understand English, but
De populations qui sont autour des écosystèmes de mangrove.
she talked about population communities around the mangrove
En matière
areas
dans ces zones.
and working in these areas. What are the activities? We also have a mangrove system, and I wanted to know what were the activities that they carry around the mangrove ecosystems for the populations in these regions, so we can maybe share just to see if it matches maybe what we're doing.
Emem, merci pour la question. Emem,
Thank you for the question. Did you?
you're still on mute. Did you hear the? Yeah.
I actually heard, but I didn't understand.
Like you talked about the mangroves in Nigeria and some activities that you do around them, but what links do they have with agroecology? If there's any agroecology projects with mangroves, or maybe just if you could present the link to mangroves again, just to clarify, so that Monsieur Sarr can see if there are any links with what he's doing in Senegal.
Okay, we had a project in the mangrove region of our area here, and the goal was to see how we could reduce pressure. That was a poor community, but they had rich forests and very rich natural resources from the mangrove area there. But they had the problem of indiscriminate felling of the mangroves. So this way they had virtually cleared the whole place out of ignorance. So that was a grant from the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund to help see how we could do some regeneration, restoration of this degraded areas, which we tried to do. So about 100-hectare area was the target, but we didn't achieve that. We were able to do about 20 hectares because of the peculiar situation we met at site. So we had to see how we could do, because those are hungry people, really poverty-stricken people, and they depend solely on the trees that fell from the mangroves. So we had to see how we could train them. We stopped the core work we had to do, see how we could, divert their attention to something else that could still fetch them money. So we introduced some livelihood activities. Aquaculture was introduced, poultry farming was introduced, and is still being sustained. That was what we could do at the level of that project. But the good news is that before we completed,
Okay.
started the project, they had actually had a change of mind towards mangrove conservation. So they don't feel it discriminately, and they started making money from the livelihood project that was set up for them. That was all in a nutshell about the project, apart from other details, which I can send if he needs to. Or we have a full report, even on the CPF, that's a Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund. They have the full reports on their website as well.
Ok,
So if details are needed, I'll be glad to share with them.
parfait. Merci beaucoup, Emem. Et Monsieur Sarr, on peut essayer
Thank
aussi de
you,
vous mettre
Mr.
directement.
Sarr. Maybe we can put you in touch directly with
Vu qu'on a déjà été
Mrs.
présent,
Emem.
juste
We are over our time already. I wanted to ask Mrs. Mboji a last question
de
from the chat.
Madame Sacramento, Claire Stéphane, qui demande notamment si le projet de micro
Someone is asking if the micro-gardening project,
de l'agriculture biologique
whether they promote also organic agriculture.
Madame Mboji,
Mrs. Emoji, are you here?
et ça va être la dernière question.
And that would be our very last question.
Oh, Madame Mboji,
Mrs. Emoji, are you still there with us?
je crois qu'elle est partie. Donc on va
I think she might be gone, so we're going to have to
peut-être-
conclude, unfortunately.
Alors, merci à tous.
Hello.
Thank you, everyone.
Hello. Sorry to contact you. I just want to say something. I appreciate a
Vous
lot
pouvez vous présenter
the wonderful
pour qu'on entende.
presentation that was
You
done
need to
today.
introduce yourself, please, before you
Oh,
speak.
Say your name and your organization.
okay. My name is Isaac Azore. I'm a representative in the project office of Let's Green the Future in Zimbabwe. And it was a wonderful opportunity to join this webinar meeting. I've learned a lot and I'm inspired by the development, sustainability development that is happening in those countries, Senegal, Nigeria, and other countries that were being presented. Okay, my question is, I think we have a problem about the sustainable development that capital is the limiting factor. Like, for example, maybe you want to do ecosystem restoration, like planting trees. Some organization, they lack capital, like for buying necessary trees for them to mitigate and adapt to climate change. I think that's the most challenge that we're having. I don't know in those areas, but in Zimbabwe, that's the problem, the challenge that we're having. I don't know if there are any funds or companies that support a development in donating maybe trees or financial trees for us to be able to buy more necessary trees for us to plant as a strategy to combat climate change. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oui. Okay. Bah, merci, Isaac. Thanks for your question. And I think there's definitely lots of things going on across the African continent for reforestation. Mais on va devoir conclure parce qu'on n'a pas dépassé beaucoup.
Unfortunately, we have to stop because we have passed our time already. I know this is a difficult exercise to keep to an hour, but please feel free to contact us either by email so that we can continue this discussion. It's been a great pleasure to be able to speak with you all, and Tanya will bring the word of conclusion. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oui, comme l'a dit Eva, j'ai que
As Eva was saying, I can only thank all of our speakers today. Thank you to all the members of the coalition who joined us today. And thank you to our translator, Dominique. You can find all the links in our chat box. And if you go to Climate Change Africa, we will meet in Dakar in September. You can follow us on our social network to find all the information. Our call for proposal is still open. Feel free to submit all your initiatives, all your projects. And the selected projects will be invited to come and present their project during the week of sustainability. And we will meet again now on May 12th, which is a Wednesday, not a Thursday, exceptionally.
Et voilà, merci à vous.
So we
Et
will
bon
see you again on May 12th at 3 p.m.
Merci à tous.
Paris time.
Pour la traduction.
Thank you.
Merci à tous les
Bye-bye.
Merci aux organisateurs et merci à tous de tout l'effort que vous faites pour nous réunir et pour pouvoir discuter ensemble.
Thank you for all your efforts and all you do so we can work together, Professor speaking. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Merci.
Merci, au revoir. Bonne journée. À
Thank you.
bientôt.
Bye-bye.
À bientôt. C'était super. Bravo. Bravo.
Merci.
Bravo et félicitations. Bravo et félicitations.